What I don't feel safer is right now they're launching missiles into Russia.
Yeah.
How are you allowed to do that when you're on the way out?
Here's the thing about Joe Rogan's episode number 2233. It represents a watershed moment I've been tracking in Russian influence operations. The X on their propaganda treasure map now points directly to his Austin, Texas studio, and for good reason.
Zelensky says Putin is terrified. Fuck you, man. Fuck you people. 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 Fuck you, man. You fucking people are about to start World War III.
With cynically constructed framing, selective emphasis, and calculated omissions, he guided millions of his listeners to adopt pro-Russian conclusions without ever having to directly state them.
Zelensky about Biden giving Zelensky the ability to use long-range missiles. U.S. made long-range. It's not like nobody knows where they came from. It's not like nobody knows we've been funding this. It's a proxy war.
What I want to explore today is how this specific episode reveals his platform has become more valuable to the Kremlin than their own troll farms. The 4 cynical tactics Rogan uses to achieve this, and see why they leave us with only 2 possible conclusions. Neither of them good. And before we dive in, there's something crucial I want you to keep in mind for the end of this analysis. After we break down Rogan's tactics, I'm going to lay out the base reality of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Because once you understand the fundamental facts of this conflict, you'll see just how cynically constructed this propaganda really is, both from Russia and from those serving their objectives, whether they know it or not. The truth here isn't complicated, which makes the framing tactics we're about to examine all the more revealing. Now, let's dive in.
Fuck you people.
When you look closely at how Rogan discusses Ukraine, you see 4 specific tactics that mirror Russian propaganda templates with almost surgical precision. And I say almost because either the precision is intentional or, well, we'll get to that. First tactic, false equivalence. Classic move, portray aggressor and defender as equally responsible. When Rogan says,
what I don't feel safer is right now they're launching missiles into Russia,
and questions,
how are you allowed to do that?
He's framing Ukraine's defense as equal to Russia's aggression. Second tactic, strategic omission. This is where it gets interesting. Notice what Rogan doesn't mention. Ukraine targets military assets while Russia bombs civilians. No mention of Iran and China arming Russia. No mention of North Korean troops in Ukraine. Most tellingly, no mention that Russia could end this tomorrow by just leaving. Third tactic, blame shifting. Instead of focusing on Russia as the aggressor, he criticizes the Biden administration for allowing Ukraine to defend itself.
How are you allowed to do that when you're on the way out? Like, the people don't want you to be there anymore. This should
See the framing there? Fourth tactic, and here's where it gets really interesting, amplifying specific Russian narratives. That comment about Zelensky's
cocaine like baby, Putin's fucking scared, man.
Yeah.
Putin's terrified.
For most viewers, it probably seemed like a throwaway line.
Zelensky, can I get a drug test?
But if you've been tracking Russian disinformation, that specific drug smear is a documented Kremlin talking point.
Are you doing a lot of blow over there?
Its appearance here isn't random.
This is like cocaine like baby, Putin's fucking scared, man.
Yeah.
They've been pushing this narrative through countless channels, from doctored videos to social media campaigns. And that's what makes Rogan's comment so interesting. Of all the ways to describe Zelensky's actions, he just happens to echo this specific Kremlin talking point. That's either a remarkable coincidence or, well, again, we'll get to that. So we're left with 2 possibilities. Either Rogan is taking direction through Kremlin-linked intermediaries, and remember, we just learned about Russia paying millions to figures in his circle like Tim Pool and Dave Rubin. Or he's what Lenin called a useful idiot, whose contrarian instincts make him perfect for amplifying Russian narratives. The evidence, especially after this episode, points pretty clearly toward option 1. Here's why this matters. With 11 million listeners per episode, Rogan's platform has become America's most potent vector for normalizing Russian perspectives. Whether he knows it or not, that X on Russia's map has found its target. Think about that next time you hear him discuss geopolitics. Pay attention not just to what he says, but how he frames it. Ask yourself, who benefits from this particular way of presenting the facts? Russia's own actions, as evidenced by their funding of Rogan's ideological ecosystem of alternative media associates, tell us their answer to the question. Now, as I promised at the beginning of this video, let me finish by touching on the base reality of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. These are fundamental facts everyone must understand about this conflict, so it can be clear just how cynically constructed the propaganda really is, both from Russia and from those wittingly or unwittingly serving their objectives. Russia's conquest plans extend far beyond Ukraine. Their goals are to go further west.
We will defeat everyone. We will kill everyone. We will rob everyone as necessary, just as we like it. God is with us.
Here's what people seem to miss about the strategic reality of this conflict. Helping Ukraine defeat Russia isn't just about Ukraine. It's about preventing World War III. Let me explain what I mean. Think about Russia's pattern here. If they absorb Ukraine, or even parts of it, their paranoid logic about unstable borders only gets worse. Now, they have even longer borders that they consider insecure. And here's the crucial thing. They're not going to stop. This isn't speculation. It's a documented pattern of plugging what they see as strategic gateways, one at a time. What happens if Ukraine falls? Suddenly, Russian forces can deploy directly from their eastern border, and that's when everyone's going to have that oh shit moment, realizing just how ambitious their actual objectives are. But by then, their troops will be that much closer to NATO territory. And here's the part that should really make you pay attention. They're already conscripting Ukrainians from occupied territories and forcing them to fight their own countrymen. Now imagine that scaled up to a country of 40 million people. That's not just a tactical advantage, it's a transformation of the entire strategic landscape. So when people suggest we should hold back support for Ukraine to avoid escalation, they're missing the bigger picture. Supporting Ukraine now is actually preventing a much larger, much deadlier conflict later. It's making sure this is the last war Russia can fight anywhere, not the first in a series of expanding conquests. What Silicon Valley is to tech, Russia is to disinformation, a craft mastered over decades of undermining the West. Here's something fascinating about human psychology, and it's documented extensively. When people realize they've been misled, their first instinct is often to double down on the false belief. It's a defense mechanism, and it's completely natural. Look, if you're watching this and realizing you've internalized some of these narratives about Ukraine, I want you to know something. It's okay. You're not stupid. You're up against one of the most sophisticated propaganda operations ever constructed. Most of us don't stand a chance against this kind of systematic manipulation. What matters isn't that you were fooled. What matters is what you do with that realization. The truly honorable move, the mark of real critical thinking, isn't never being wrong. It's being willing to recalibrate your understanding when confronted with facts. That's not weakness. That's intellectual courage. Because here's the thing about Russia's disinformation apparatus. It's designed specifically to exploit how human minds work. The fact that it worked on you doesn't make you gullible. It makes you human. The question is, what are you going to do with that understanding? There's no such thing as peace talks with Russia. It only understands and responds to power. Let me point out something about these calls for peace talks with Russia.
Everybody wants peace. Just figure out a way to fucking balance it all out.
That people seem to miss. And this isn't speculation. This is documented pattern recognition. Every single time Russia talks about negotiations, it's theater, pure performance. Here's the thing. Russia has never, and I mean never, abided by any agreement they've signed. Look at the Budapest Memorandum, where they promised to respect Ukraine's sovereignty in exchange for nuclear disarmament. Look at the Minsk agreements. Look at literally any ceasefire they've agreed to in this war. The historical record is crystal clear on this. There's exactly one language Russia responds to: power and deterrence. Everything else is just buying time for their next move. When you understand this pattern, you understand why all this hand-wringing about giving peace a chance is exactly what Russia wants. It gives them time to regroup while wearing down Western resolve. This isn't cynicism. It's pattern recognition based on decades of documented behavior. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Russia's nuclear blackmail is a desperate bluff. Here's the thing about Russia's nuclear threats. They reveal something fascinating about Putin's playbook. Look at the pattern. Every time Russia faces real resistance, out come the nuclear threats. But there's a tell that exposes this as pure theater. Think about this. If Putin was actually preparing for nuclear war, wouldn't you expect to see Russia's elite evacuating their families from the West? Instead, what do we see? Putin's own daughter is living in Europe as a DJ. Not exactly the behavior of someone expecting nuclear apocalypse. Let me give you my favorite example of this contradiction. There's this guy, Dmitry Kiselyov, one of Putin's main TV propagandists. He goes on Russian state TV threatening to drown Britain in a radioactive tsunami with some underwater nuke. Scary stuff, right? Except where does he go right after making these threats? On vacation? Overseas? With his family? See what's really happening here? These nuclear threats aren't about actual nuclear war. They're about making Western publics pressure their own leaders to back down. It's nuclear blackmail, pure and simple. Because here's the reality. Russia knows it can never win a direct confrontation with NATO and the US, so they're trying to win through fear what they can't win through force. When you understand this pattern, these threats start looking less like strength and more like desperation. These are just the tip of the iceberg, and I will soon publish a far more comprehensive video about these and many more baseline realities of the conflict. So please subscribe to my channel and let's keep this dialogue going.
Fuck you, man. Fuck you people.